Right, so in this video, we're gonna go over the emergency fund, okay? Everybody needs an emergency fund because you never know what's coming in the near future, okay? So this is gonna be 5 rules to help you through tough times, okay? First off, we need to know what an emergency may be, okay? And it varies for everybody. You never know what's gonna happen, okay? One of the most common emergencies is unforeseen medical expenses, all right? Maybe you have to have surgery that you weren't expecting. Maybe you're in an accident or something and you're not able to perform your job and you have surgery because of that, okay? You never know what it's going to be. Medical expenses add up quickly, so that's one thing that might constitute an emergency, okay? Loss of job, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You lose your job, you've got to be able to pay your expenses until you're able to get another job to help bring in money. Okay. Unforeseen car expenses. You know, a car accident can happen at any time, whether it's your fault or not is really irrelevant. Okay. Hopefully insurance will make you whole, but that's not always the case. Okay. What if your car breaks down? It's not able to work. You know, that's a big expense having to buy a car. So that would constitute an emergency as well. Okay. If you own a house, a lot of times, you're responsible for all the appliances and the systems in the house, like the furnace, the air conditioning, the water, the plumbing, etc. If one of those goes down, the fix or the replacement of those appliances or systems, could be very expensive. So that might be an emergency. All right. Death or major injury to a family member, especially if that family member brings in revenue to the house, that could constitute an emergency in many cases. Okay. And there's a lot of other things that might constitute an emergency. So think about what might be an emergency that you've experienced in your family in the past. All right. So first thing we want to do, as always with savings, we want to set a goal. Okay. Set a goal and stick to it. You need to understand how much you need. All right. We'll talk about how much we need a little bit later on, but you need to understand how much money you're going to need to get through an emergency. How long do you have in order to save to create this emergency fund? Okay. And then understand how much you need to put away each month or each pay period to help you achieve that goal, okay? We talked about what emergencies were before, but define what an emergency is for you, okay? What may be an emergency for me may not be an emergency for you, and vice versa, all right? How long may you need to cover expenses if a true emergency happens, okay? Is it gonna take you a couple months to get through? Is it gonna take you 6 months to get through? Is it gonna take you a year or maybe more to get through? You need to understand how long you're gonna need to cover those expenses, okay? Understand, are you responsible for only yourself? You're a single individual, your money's all for you and isn't going to help family members, or are you responsible for others? Do you have a spouse? Do you have children? If so, your emergency fund may need to be larger to help cover expenses for those individuals, all right? Step number 3, or rule number 3, you want to ensure you can cover at least 3 to 6 months of expenses, okay? In some cases, maybe it's more. In some cases, maybe it's less, all right? First off, you need to understand what your expenses are, okay, and how much you spend each month so you can calculate how much you need in your emergency fund, okay? My dad always told me back in the day to have at least 2 months of expenses set aside just in case, but I think, a lot of times having more than 2 months is a better plan. Going for 3 to 6 months should work for most people, all right? In order to be on the safe side, it's important to try to at least have 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses, the necessities. Now, we're not talking about entertainment, fun, vacation, stuff like that. That's not going to be necessities. When you're in an emergency situation, those things tend to go away or get pushed back, all right? And like we said before, if you're the sole provider for a family, you may need to have a longer period of time covered. You may need to go to 6, 8, 12 months even to have enough to cover those expenses. Rule number 4, you want to be liquid and you want to be low risk, okay? We talked earlier about what liquidity is. It's the ability to access your money very quickly, okay? So you want to make sure your emergency fund is in a form that is very liquid, all right? You don't want to be in artwork. You don't want to have your money tied up in businesses. You don't want to have your money tied up in gold bars or anything like that. You want to be very liquid where you can access the money right away. You also want to be low risk, okay? And because we want to be liquid and low risk, we want to be in an interest-bearing savings account. Try to find the highest interest you can for your emergency fund. It's the easiest way to be liquid and be low risk. All right. And rule number 5, you got to remember the purpose of the fund. Okay. This is not a rainy day fund. This is not a fund where, you know, hey, you're a little bit in bad shape. Maybe you want to go out and buy something to make yourself happy. That's not the purpose of the fund. Okay. The funds are there for an emergency. Okay. Don't dip into those funds for non-emergency reasons. Make sure the money's there. When a true emergency happens, you're able to get through 2, 3, 6, 12 months even to get you through that tough time, okay? And be honest with yourself about your situation. Understand what you need, understand what constitutes an emergency, and understand that the purpose of the fund is to be there to keep you safe through tough times.